Thank you, Rob. So we are now back in open session, excuse me, and I can confirm that we only discussed those items that we went into closed session to discuss. Now, we have a motion on the floor. I'll read it so that everyone is clear. The report FRRP 0723 financial impact assessment Rockwood Terrace project be received and that staff be authorized to prepare such bylaws as may be necessary to apply to Infrastructure Ontario to borrow $108 million for the redevelopment of Rockwood Terrace. Excuse me. The recommendation is to receive or amend that motion to just receive that information. Would someone care to move that? Councillor Body, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor? That is carried. We'll now go back to the amended motion. Someone care to move that, please? I believe Sarah has it on the. Okay, that's right. We do have the original mover and seconder. Any discussion on the amended motion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Now, we also have another motion recommended by staff. Right. So it is in council's hands to decide what they want to do in terms of numbers. Councillor Body.
I will move that recommend.
Councillor Matrosov seconds it. Yes, clerk will read the motion, please.
So the motion on the floor is that staff be directed to communicate with Colliers to amend the total project budget to an upset limit of $92 million for the redevelopment of Rockwood Terrace.
Thank you, Tara. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Similar to the previous motion that we just received, does there need to be an addition to with regards to bringing a bylaw forward at this time? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Council, with your indulgence, if we could also add on to that motion, the wording regarding proceeding ahead of county council approval to ensure that any deadline of the end of March is adhered to. So that would be proceeding prior to county council approval as per section 26.6 of the procedural bylaw.
Mover okay with that? Seconder? Who seconded that? Matrosov, you're okay with that? Very good, thank you. Now, Councillor Mackey, you had a question.
Not a question, Mr. Warden. I'd just like a recorded vote, please.
Okay, when we get there, we will do that. And I suspect we're perilously close to a vote unless somebody else has another question. Okay, I'll ask the clerk to take the poll.
To Councillor Mackey. You don't need to use.
In favor.
Councillor Mackey is in favor. Councillor McKay.
In favor.
Councillor McKay is in favor. Councillor Carlton. In favor. Councillor Carlton is in favor. Councillor Pringle. Councillor Pringle is in favor. Councillor McQueen. Councillor McQueen is in favor. Councillor Nielsen. Councillor Nielsen is opposed. Councillor Patterson. In favor. Councillor Patterson is in favor. Warren Dickert. Councillor Dickert. Councillor Dickert is in favor. Councillor Kentner. Councillor Kentner is in favor. Councillor Keaveney. In favor. Councillor Keaveney is in favor. Councillor Body. Councillor Body is in favor. Councillor Gregg.
Opposed.
Councillor Gregg is opposed. Warden Milne.
Yay.
Warden Milne is in favor. Councillor Dobreen. Councillor Dobreen is in favor. Councillor Matrosov. Counselor Machasovs is in favor. Counselor Borneo,
In favor.
Counselor Borneo is in favor. Counselor Eccles. Pardon me? Counselor Eccles is in favor. Counselor Hutchinson.
In favor.
Counselor Hutchinson is in favor. That motion carries 83-13.
Very good. Thank you, council. A lot of discussion on that. So now we need to go back. We have a couple consent items that were all four actually were removed for further discussion. The first was pavement condition index single source award. That report, well, I won't read it. It's there for you. Councillor Gregg, would you like to move that motion or just speak to it?
I would move the motion. I just would like to speak to it.
I'll just get a seconder first. Seconder for that? Councillor Nielsen.
I just thought it would be prudent to get a little bit more background information on where we're at in terms of technology advancements when it comes to evaluating the pavement condition index. I think way back when there used to be a roads tour by the transportation committee kind of would have firsthand knowledge of an insight of the road conditions. We went to these pavement condition indexes, which is fine. And but is technology progressing at a point where it's going to enable us to evaluate the benefit of just purchasing our own equipment and offsetting? Because this kind of looks like our cost used to be a day of per diems for a committee to ride the roads to $224,000 now. And I'm just wondering, at some point, is there technological advancements that we can be awaiting where we just secure our own technology and remove a lot of that annual cost?
I see Trevor's in the room unless, I mean, Trevor's probably going to tell us that in 10 years, we don't need cars anymore. We're going to drive hovercrafts to work. So, but Trevor, if you want to come up and speak to that, please.
Yeah, so to answer your question, basically the advance is probably, since I guess that time, the amount of data we collect, it's not just strictly for a PCI of a road section. What we're actually getting from IRIS is a lot more focalized information or focused information. So every 10 meters, basically photos are taken, we get cracking information. We can go into a dashboard that IRIS provides us, which allows us to look at all the different types of cracking that occur just within those 10-meter segments, which really helps from an operations standpoint because we can focus our kind of just small little fixes. It might not be that the whole road section is in bad repair. It just might be a couple 100 meters, and they can go and target that repair, which in general increases the life of our roads. So from a data standpoint, it's much easier for us in the office. If I need to see a segment of road that maybe the guys are complaining about, I can go in instantly, look at the photos that are taken from IRIS and get the information right away without having to take a drive out to go and check it out or anything like that. It's also, the nice thing about it is it's very consistent. There's no sort of human biases to it. So again, it's always data driven, and you can rely on it being more accurate rather than sometimes you're driving on a road. The road actually might be a pretty comfortable drive, but there's a lot of cracking, so it looks terrible. So it can be deceiving in terms of how the road's holding up, and it can kind of be the other way. It can be really bumpy and falling apart, but it actually might look like very minimal cracking, so it looks fine. Yeah, so from that standpoint, it's much more beneficial from us, at least from a staff standpoint, for making decisions. So in terms of getting our own equipment, unfortunately, we have the camera, but buying a camera doesn't really allow us the ability to do that. That's all proprietary algorithms and software stuff on IRIS's side. So they automatically, the information gets uploaded to them and they run it through the algorithms to process and generate that information. So without a significant amount of IT and help, I don't think we have that ability to do it ourselves. So the nice thing about it is it's also driving other roads, not just our own. So again, it's collecting more and more information all the time. So it's ultimately improving itself as we keep going forward. So yeah, hope that answers the question.
Councillor Gregg?
It's good, and I appreciate that, because certainly, if I was walking down the street tomorrow and someone approached me from a company that provided that type of technology and equipment, I have to be able to answer the question why it's sole source. So I appreciate the insight in terms of the algorithms and the ongoing work in the back office on it. Thanks, Trevor.
Any other questions on that particular item? Councillor Mackey?
Thanks, Mr. Warden. So Trevor, in your professional opinion, you get more value out of this technology than you would a bunch of counselors driving around for an afternoon? I just want to be clear.
Sure. Yeah, I think so, but
Who does this guy's performance appraisal? Councillor DeBreen?
Through you, Warden Milne. Hello, Trevor. The other part of that driving around, I would imagine that this covers a lot more ground, 1,700 and some odd kilometers, lanes of kilometers, where it would take an awful long time for us to drive a fifth of that. So it's like going to Nova Scotia. So
yeah, actually to that, so we do actually do the driving for them. They don't. This is one of the reasons why it ends up being a cheaper opportunity for us, is because we would do the driving ourselves and we don't pay someone else in all their manpower. So it basically can be put in a patrol vehicle. So they're doing it as they're doing their regular jobs. They'll just transition through. So maybe they're in Hanover today, so they do a couple of roads around there. And yeah, so the savings, it's kind of partnered in that way.
Councillor DeBreen?
and that was also my point. This is not, they're not going out specifically to do the 1,700 kilometers of roads. It's covering, it's gathering the data as they're doing their normal day-to-day patrols, which is extremely beneficial as well. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor McQueen?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm sure that if a counselor had interest, they could probably get you a ride, but I know last year at the Good Roads Conference, there was a presentation put on with regards to that, and those that are going this year, there may be a booth there, or there may be follow-up with regards. I found it quite interesting. I sat in on that, and yeah, because it continuously updates itself, right? If there's something changes too, right, and let you know, right? So thanks.
Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Trevor. Moving on to M. It is the award of the Gray Road 7 reconstruction. Councillor Gregg, I believe you pulled this one as well. Would someone, or do you want to move this, or did someone else?
I'd move this.
Seconder, Councillor Mackey. Mr. Hoy, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk just briefly about, well, this 7 and 18 are similar in that they're one of our kind of new category 3 jobs in development charges. So at one point, category 3 was kind of used for a road upgrade, basically a road upgrade based on development and the increased traffic and all those kind of things. And it needs a little more structure. So we had used category 3 from development charges for going from surface treatment to asphalt. We don't have many surface treatment roads left, like most of them are covering now, but we don't have any straight surface treatment left. So kind of with the last round of DCs, we started talking about the fact that you kind of keep going up over the years. The roads need to get wider. You need bigger shoulders. There's more traffic. We got paved shoulders on them now, and they just kind of get steeper and steeper. And we just felt that we could never kind of get the platforms to where they need to be. For everyone that travels on an MTO road, you know how they have the great big shoulders, 2.5 meters, 2.4, whatever, and ours would be, you know, quite narrow. So Gray Road 7 and Gray Road 18 are two of those DC category jobs where we're actually widening the platform. So they're really big earth jobs, both of them. Lots of work, new paved shoulders, and you know, a granular behind, like it should just feel a lot wider, that you're not kind of going to fall off the edge of the shoulder and you know, get into trouble somewhere. So really good work by our engineering team. I think most importantly, both of them were out early. I don't think it's a coincidence. The early ones always seem to do better than the late ones. And they were out very early. They're quite large, like, over 10K, some of them now. We used to do kind of smaller things back in the day. When you do a kilometer, you're not really getting a good deal. And just the other thing, just as far as the financial part, it looks, you think, okay, it's 700,000 under budget. But for one thing, that's just, a lot of it is because your DC is, your development charges is figured out as part of the final tender. As the tender price drops, you're getting less DC, and less DC is coming out of the reserve. So we are saving that money, but it's staying in reserve. So in the case of Gray Road 7, there's an extra 370,000 that's just going to stay in the DC reserve for many of the other DC jobs that we have the next bunch of years, right? And one other thing before everyone gets all excited about the money, the money that we're under budget and spends it somewhere else. Some are coming in over. We've had one over since. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I'll wait till the bad news comes, but that's what estimating is, right? Our guys do the best they can to estimate. We don't know exactly what a contractor's going through. Walker got these 2 jobs. EC King got the MTO job on the highway. All of a sudden they're busy. Maybe they bid more somewhere. Maybe there's a longer haul somewhere. Maybe they're bringing workers in. Maybe they have a portable asphalt plant. We don't really know the ins and outs of how a contract gets priced exactly. We have our unit prices. We look at them every year. We kind of try to adjust and get as close as we can. And in general, we're pretty good. Some are under, some are over. And in the end, I say it's like Price is Right. You want to be on, like, no matter what, we can't be over. We need to be under, but you don't want to be too far under, right? So these ones seem too far under, but we have some coming that are over. That's really confusing the way I just said that. But anyway, that's yes. So, and the other thing we did in this job, there's two jobs we brought together. So Trevor does that every year. He works on the 10-year plan, and we always try to kind of move things a little bit. If there's, a couple concessions between 2 jobs and they're supposed to be 2 years apart, we might move them both so they're the same year, just to get that economies of scale.
Thanks, Pat. And I think you sell yourself a little short when you say generally we're pretty good. I'd say the TAPS team is really good. Any other question? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Warden Milne. It's excellent news, and certainly staff did a great job of combining those 2 projects, and that certainly is part of the excellent pricing. I think also it's great to know there'll be such a positive expansion of paved shoulders because the actual lane kilometers here is pretty significant between those 2 projects. So that's certainly of high importance to the county, is the expansion of our active transportation network or cycling initiatives, and this is certainly front and center on Gray Road 7 is extremely well used, and Gray Road 18 is not well used right now because it's extremely dangerous and frightening, and also for the Gray Road 18 quite complex. So the pricing results a pretty tricky couple instances at the east end there. We're going through the marsh and or through the swamp, and also some of those slopes are extremely steep. So excellent results. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. When do you expect these projects to start?
The construction window, is May 15th to August 15th. And since one contractor got them both, they're pretty raring to go. We're not sure exactly what their schedule is yet, and how they're going to kind of navigate both of them at once. But there's a closure on 18 as well, through the swamp there, because there's, as we say, there's a very industrious beaver in there that we've been arguing with conservation over a little bit on. There's a huge dam back. If you ever look at the air photo of 18, the swamp, it's quite something. But anyway, we get a lot of flooding issues there, and we really couldn't construct it without doing a closure. So.
Councillor Eccles, or sorry, Councillor McQueen.
Just to follow up, yeah, I drive that way coming here when we come to a meeting. 2 things, it is a need. Number 2, I'm gonna have to find a new route.
Councillor Eccles.
Thank you. And with that said, the size of these projects and the company that's doing both of them, is there anything in there as far as penalties go if we don't meet those dates? And disclosure of what that might be or could be?
Yes, there's late penalty. Is it 1,000 a day? Usually it's 1,000 a day that we have for our penalty clause. And then we discuss during the year a day that maybe they're not there. Was the rain bad enough for them to really leave, or did they go somewhere else? Our big thing with those projects is if there's a legitimate change in scope, we grant days during the year as it goes, if something comes up. So we add a culvert in somewhere. We're willing to do that, but we just feel we need those penalties because nothing makes people madder than having a closed road and there seems to be nobody there working on it. That just drives people nuts. So we make a schedule that we think they can achieve. In this case, one contractor got both of them, so it's going to be a lot for them. But we've had a lot of issues, with contracts over the year going late, as everyone has. But we do our best to make sure to push them and do those kind of things. And usually it's we haven't had a lot of huge long overruns in time.
And I guess even something that might be bigger than that is the ability to source and produce enough asphalt to cover both of those projects as well too. It'll be of interest to see how they manage and handle something of that size and capacity and scope. And there may be a few other people watching as well too.
Okay, any other questions? Call the question, all in favor? That is carried. Gray Road 18 is much the same, I'm sure, unless, would someone care to move acceptance of that motion? Councillor DeBreen, Councillor, I'm gonna take Councillor Bornhill. There you go, right on, because we've got to get Peter in the game here somewhere. Do you have any other comments regarding 18? Okay, any questions? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Just one more, which is the tender award for Gray Road 28 and 24th Avenue, the town of Hanover. Someone care to move that, please? Councillor Pringle, Councillor Deckert. Trevor going to speak to this one. Yeah, this must be a tough one.
Thank you. Thanks, Warden. So yeah, I guess the report for Gray Road 28 in town of Hanover. This is just basically to provide the results of that contract. Contract is done by the town of Hanover in this case, so we're kind of part of the party, but they're the ones kind of running the show. And originally this project was supposed to be from 10th Street to the Saugeen River Bridge on Gray Road 28, but through a couple different issues, we've deferred some of the work. So we're now just going to focus on 14th Street to the Saugeen River Bridge. And I'll go over that kind of as we get through this. So the work involves replacement of the road, as well as installation of new water main and storm sewers. The work was incorporated as part of the 2021 development charges background study and includes DCs for the county's portion of the work only. The project is driven primarily because of development along Gray Road 28 north of 14th Street and the need to service those developments. So scope at the time of the budget included 10th Street. And during the initial design meetings with the consultant, we kind of understood that the ultimate design of the lane configuration north of 10th Street, kind of where the Canadian Tire and the stacked pancakes is, that would effectively be the same. But we've been getting a few complaints, also town of Hanover has been getting complaints, and we've kind of taken a much closer look at it, and we're not very comfortable with the fact that it would remain 3 lanes there. We're thinking that we might need to expand to a 4th lane to deal with the different configuration and to make the traffic within the intersection smoothly or run smoothly. And because of that, what we've done is we've asked that we get a traffic study for the intersection to be done. And then once the ultimate configuration of Railroad 28 north of 10th Street is figured out, rather than build the road now with 3 lanes and then all of a sudden, a couple of years from now, realize you need a 4th lane, we figured it's best just to defer that now, make the right decision, and then build it then. So we were more comfortable with kind of extending the works from 12th Street, but Town of Hanover asked they would like to go from 14th Street to the north, and that's mostly because the construction would include a sidewalk on the west side of the road. And because of that, there was no connection from 10th or 12th to 10th Street. So they didn't really want to drop pedestrians off in the middle of nowhere. And so we agreed and said, yep, we'll go from 14th Street. So that's really the main reason for the change in overall scope of the project. As far as the bid, we're comfortable with the bid that they priced for the amount of work after we kind of scaled it back and evaluated what the cost would be, and it seems to be pretty fair. So yeah, staff's just asking for approval to move forward with that. Yeah, any questions?
Questions for Trevor? Councillor Eccles?
Thank you. How many bids were submitted? That's kind of a facetious little question there. You'll notice the following 3 submissions were received. I count 6, but anyways, I realized that that was probably the director's addition there, and that's why you do the number part, Trevor. Another one towards you, Pat. The sidewalk, this is being done towards an urban center, and I don't know whether it's through you or more towards the representatives from Hanover. The sidewalks are going to be there or not in this part of the project?
So north of 14th Street, it's going to be, I believe it's a 3-meter trail off on the west side that will connect into the trail network, which is north of the creek that crosses. So it won't, the sidewalk is basically from 10th Street to 14th Street. That'll be where the eventual sidewalk is. And then north of that, again, it's a trail system that connects in with the trail or section within the community.
If I'm not mistaken, the trail section, or maybe Councillor Patterson wants to.
Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Warden. Recently, Hanover Council approved sidewalk and curbs and gutter and streetlights from 14th to the bridge.
That answer your question? Yes, it does. Any other questions regarding this item? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Trevor. Any other business that can properly come before this meeting? Councillor Body.
Thank you, Warden Mellon. I've got one point, if you give me a bit of latitude and a couple of questions. Well, others have taken it, I guess, today, so I guess I can. Just going back to the year-end transfer point, usually I try and make this calculation before I get here, and some of you have heard my dartboard analogy before. The 1,589,000 surplus is 2.4% of the levy of 65,359,000. So 2.4. Of course, whether we're in deficit or in surplus, you always want to be as close to that budget as you can get. Dartboard is 17 inches 3/4 in diameter. The little red bullseye right in the middle is a 1/2 inch in diameter, or 2.8% of the diameter of the blackboard. Therefore, this surplus is on the red dot of the blackboard, or of the dartboard. So whenever you do that, I think that's pretty good. So I have a question for Ms. Wingrove, I think. I recall back about 2012, Councillor Eccles and Milne will remember better. Warden McKinley came up with a plan of how we can work through the county with other lower tiers and opt in and opt out of things. And I don't remember the exact wording of that.
Over the last couple of weeks, I was talking to other lower tier counselors that were talking about, at the lower tier, they were doing the short-term accommodation bylaws. And it seems to me that there's several of us that are doing it around the table on our own. And I wonder if that's efficient, if it's better that one of us does it and the others adopt, or if we work together. And I'm not sure if it will have come up at clerks meetings or CAOs meetings, or if that's something that the county could help us at least heard. I'm not expecting the county, I don't think, to write the report, but I wonder if they can maybe do the survey and herd the lower tiers together to see if we can work together and kill one bird with 6 stones or something like that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Body. And I would look probably to our planning group as a way to start those discussions. I think we'd be more than happy to provide some support for everyone to at least come to a foundational document that everybody can then work from. And there's likely to be some customization, but even to have a conversation about what that customization might look like and what form it should take might be beneficial to everyone. But I see Randy or Scott might have other comments.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Warden. And we recently had some discussions with municipal staff, with CEOs, planners, some finance staff are there, and chief building officials and others. That was one of the topics that we thought we could be able to share some best practices and at least collaborate or coordinate in terms of what other municipalities are doing. And we did recognize that there were a few municipalities that were doing short-term accommodation bylaws. So we thought that that could be something that from a county staff perspective anyways, that we could at least gather the information in terms of where folks are at and share any best practices that we've seen throughout the province with respect to short-term accommodation bylaws.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Next question comes back to waste management. City got our waste management strategic report. I forget what it's called. And we'd all, well, I guess not everyone around the table, but most of us would love to be able to do green bin, and the cost was unbelievable again. I do recall Meaford renewed their waste contract a year or two ago to a shocking price for them, and we're all about to go through that. We've had the discussion around the table. I remember it's being raised by maybe Warden, I guess at the time, Barfoot or Councillor Barfoot. Where did we get to on county level, kind of coordinating that? As we move forward, landfills are going to fill up soon. The cost of doing green bin or organic waste management is still quite high. The province is pushing any municipality over 50,000 to do something, which on our own, we're not, any of us are over 50, and together we maybe could take advantage of some of those opportunities. And I'm wondering where we got to, and if there's any appetite of seriously looking at doing all of our waste and waste management together, thinking long-term as landfill sites start to fill up. Each lower tier is going to get into a lot of liability and a lot of costs that maybe we should be working together. So I'll just throw that out as a question, and thank you for your answers.
With regard to the waste management study, it was discussed at the table, and the county made application through the municipal modernization funding for support to do that. Looking critically at what it would take to do a proper job of something that complicated. We felt that it would take a number of months and probably a significant investment. Where we ran up against it with the province was that although that they were willing to provide some money towards the project, they also wanted it done in 3 months. And we just couldn't see that there was any way that we'd get someone or that they could begin to do justice to the kind of assessment or analysis that would be required to give you a meaningful product at the end. So they wouldn't budge and I wouldn't either. So that's kind of where we ended up with that. This afternoon is the provincial budget. I know that there have been requests made to see another round of that municipal modernization funding put in place. So I'll be watching carefully to see if there's anything there. But certainly if it's something that someone wants to bring to the table, we could look at what the scope of work should be and then talk further about what that might look like.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, I look for a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry. Oh, is there any notices of motion? I knew that. Counselor Carlton, are you moving to adjourn? Yes, you were. Seconded by Counselor Nielsen. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your indulgence. We are now adjourned.